I can now use AI to build me a company. We had Blue Pill on yesterday. He started him a vegan pizza company, and he started to utilize these AI robocallers. Now, people know that there's AI on the other end, but when you a startup, right, you can't afford to hire multiple customer service agents, right, when you first started. So part of the funnel system that he has is people call in, or he can have people call them. So he has a funnel system to where now, instead of him being able to hire a customer service agent as a human being, he was able to feed it a knowledge set. It took in the script. It can do outbounding and incoming calls. And now he was able to service the customers, and then he can look at the percentage rate that he converts when it comes to, his funnel system that he has. So his lack of, resources in the sense of capital was no longer I'm gonna get to it, was no longer his excuse. So my brother just got in here, so we went over earlier where he say, how does a self-training device can make a person dumber? So what I was going over, and we kind of went over that in the beginning of the logic of it, was the fact that people are, and it's not that it actually makes you dumber, but the way that people using it is that they are not depending on themselves. So one person and having the ability to utilize philosophy, perspective, right, and your current knowledge that you do have to enhance, right, yourself. Okay, so you was here in the building. So I would rather hear your question out loud, because if you were here from the beginning, that I thought I explained it in a way that was articulate enough. But for me, it's not that it's actually completely lowering your IQ, but in the sense that you become dependent on it, you don't actually have the skill set yourself. And I mean that in the thinking capacity. Because a lot of people are using AI, but they're not utilizing it in a manner to where they're getting the best results. So they becoming dependent on it to where you ask them a simple question and they have to go to AI for the answer when their brain should have already been able to come up with that answer. But instead of them even wanting to rely on their brain, which is developing their brain, developing those connections of communication and reasoning and logic and comprehensive thinking, right, and executive faculties of the brain and creating more neural connections, they put that task off completely to the machine. So that development within the brain is not working. So what I want to see people do, of course, is utilize AI, because my formula is AI plus NI equals EI. That's artificial intelligence plus natural intelligence equals enhanced intelligence. Yes, sir. So, and I said that because I was thinking upon somebody that I know is using AI, and I'm like, it came from a thumbnail on YouTube, and it was an episode that we put out, and I'm like, yo, this episode, I can tell they had AI write this, and I'm like, how is this even remotely? Matter of fact, there was one yesterday, and this is one thing y'all got to understand: the average person has like a high school level of comprehension. So a lot of times when you have in your prompts large words, most people can't comprehend that. So what you do is you go then tell it to simplify the words so that the average person that's scrolling past it can understand it. Because AI sometimes says things in a manner to where it doesn't act as if you're talking to a human being. It's just spitting out information. So it was something about a caption that was like, synthesizing information in the world about different realities. And I'm like, what is this actual clip about? Because empathetic thinking and design is that a person, while scrolling through information, right, or has split-second decision to decide, right, as they're going through their timeline, what they want to watch. So the simpler you make it and the more correct that you make it, right, makes it easier for a person to then make a decision to choose and watch it. And within that first couple of minutes, if the topic in which they clicked on this thumbnail is not directly correlated to that caption, in the content when you first watch it, then a person's going to click off because they're going to then think that they were fooled. So even when it comes to the art of writing captions, the art of creating thumbnails, the art of titling things, you also have to understand that these were people hold jobs. You go to Disney, somebody has an entire job to do that, right? You go to Netflix, that's somebody's entire job to like come up with the title of things. So we do these things casually because we're now our whole media production companies, not realizing that each one of these variables, right, creates a difference in, the amount of efficiency and effectiveness that you have when it comes to your performance metrics and how good that you're going to be at media. And this is why you look at somebody like Mr. Beast, right? He's really good at that, and he has a team behind that. And most people, they experiment and they practice to see which one is going to hit, but they study the psychology and the science behind it as well, right? What gets people to hook, right? What is payoff promises? How do you re-hook people in content and things of that nature? So for me, if you have this background information, then you're programming AI. Now it has the proper parameters in the context window. So therefore, it's performing the task in a manner in which you need it to. So that to me is the best part. That to me is the smarter way to go about utilizing artificial intelligence, because you don't want to be operating from artificial intelligence yourself while trying to command artificial intelligence. That's the Spider-Man meme pointing back at itself. You don't know what to do. The AI don't know what to do. When we only think in these parameters, they're blocked up, right? And instead of your mind having this flow where your consciousness is constantly operating from a level of abundance, people get stuck in these boxes of thinking, right? This is why a lot of people, in this day and age, you won't hear me say this too often, but in Silicon Valley, what do? They microdose so that their brain is not just operating from that same pathway over and over, and they can't think outside of self, right? And so I like that idea for some people, to be honest, right? And that microdose is when you have that underlying effect, but you're not really feeling it, but it's operating, and your brain has the ability to think. And the art of thinking, I believe, is wholly lost on most people. And understanding your brain and understanding methods of the mind and developing a super mind. So I wanted to enhance the person you are. And I believe one of the ways of getting there is through personal self-assessment, right? Having a dossier on who you are and having a file on who you are and studying yourself from a multidimensional perspective. So as you're operating, you're not operating from a place of ignorance, right? Now you're operating from a place of knowledge of self. And when you have that level of awareness, right, and increasing that depth of awareness allows you to start expanding yourself, because you see where your current limits are, right? And outside of that is where you start to stretch. And a lot of people procrastinate where their limits are because it's painful, right? So instead of moving past that and pushing past that and gaining traction, right? You seek pleasure. You seek pleasure where the pain is, because that pain is that birthing process that allows you to expand and to give birth to another aspect of self to be able to grow. So for me, when I'm studying things and my brain is telling me that I don't understand it, and it almost gets to the point where it's almost hard, but I had to study learning how to learn by understanding the context that we have focused thinking and diffuse thinking. And focused thinking is when you're trying to pick up a subject by intensely, I'm studying on this, and you have a narrow window of I'm going to pick it up. But if you don't have background knowledge on it, then your brain doesn't have anything to build on top of it, because you need context to connect it to, right? You need foundation. So instead of learning from a narrow perspective of trying to concentrate and focus this information in your brain, we focus diffuse thinking is more so taking a wider view of things, of understanding the concept. First, let's just get the high level. Let's just get the high level of what we're talking about here. Don't think you need to capture everything. What's the high level? What's the concept? And from that concept, right, we can then start building and then start focusing from there. So it's like having a a laser focus versus having a flashlight, right? To where you creating and casting a wider net on a subject, which makes it much more easier to understand. So that changed the way that I started to go about learning, because in subjects that were hard for me, I focused on the concept. And then I build layers of information on top of that concept. And then I would research. And then I would, when I say research, search, then search again, then search again. Because then I would have to search a definition. I would have to understand the word. Then I would have to understand the root so that I can understand the context that the author that's publishing his research is coming from. So now that I understand the root of anything, now it allows me to be able to grasp the information, right, and manipulate the understanding in whatever way that I want to. So when you start focusing on the art of thinking, then you can utilize artificial intelligence, right, in a much greater capacity. But I just don't want to see so many people get stuck and stop developing their mind because they think they have a tool that's going to think for them. That's dangerous. But I use AI every single day, right? And we use it because we're enhancing the processes of the things that we are already doing. But the way that I prompt, I'll always get the results that I want because I know how to think. And I know how to philosophize about things, gain perspectives. I know how to analyze to get proper reasoning. I know how to, connect dots of information to get exactly what I am trying to access from this machine. And what that does is it cuts down time. It cuts down the amount of money that I'm going to spend, the amount of energy that I'm going to spend. So now that I'm moving fast, and I told Blue Pill this yesterday, for me, it's about the time and the energy. So if I'm spending less time and I'm spending less energy, then that means I have more time and more energy for other things. And poor people never have time, can't afford time. And when you do have that much time, right, and that's freed up because you can afford it, you start thinking about completely different things. So sometimes that we are so used to utilizing our human capital, our energy over time, and however much that is worth to your job or the output that you get from that based on the income that you receive from that, that's how we grade the value of it. But I've never heard nobody say, everybody's heard somebody say here, yo, you work too hard. I've never heard nobody say you work too smart. Never in my life. Never in my life, bro. You working way too smart, bro. No, people will tell you working too hard because we only have a finite amount of physical energy, right, and even mental energy at a high level that we can utilize throughout the day. But AI is you working smart if you properly utilize it for efficiency and effectiveness. So we now in the era where you need to figure out how you can work smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. So you take the processes that usually takes 10 people, right? And you can get a machine to automate those processes. That's working smarter, not harder. And human beings have to get back to doing things that human beings should be doing in the first place. You working at McDonald's in a drive-through, or you even being an accountant, just crunching numbers. That's not a joyful human experience. So when AI take these things that are machine-based to where you train a human being like you would train an AI model that they know this specific skill, and then they do that thing over and over and over and over and over, right? That doesn't bring true joy, and that's not really harnessing the unlimited power of the human mind. We are the great design. So I think that what it's going to get us back to is having to operate like gods again and rulers of domain. And I think that scares some people to be masters of their own consciousness. I think it scares people to be a part of that managerial class of the world now, to where you have these machines, you have intelligence under your charge. And you're now responsible, right, for the output of these machines. But you can only output in that machine based on your ability to manage it, your ability to master it, right? And that mastery goes to the depth of your own self-mastery.